In a world addicted to noise, why do those who stay silent always seem to win? Why is it that the ones who say the least often go the farthest? Think about it. The loudest people in the room, what do they really gain? A few likes, a few claps. But then what? The noise fades, and all that's left is who they really are. Welcome back, friends. To those of you who've been riding this wave with me, welcome home. To the new ones, if something in you brought you here, curiosity, pain, hunger, stillness, subscribe. Stick around. This channel isn't about hype, it's about truth. Today's truth? When you focus on yourself and you stay silent, everything, and I mean everything, starts to fall into place. You see, in the age of oversharing, where everyone's broadcasting their highlight reels, chasing validation, screaming over each other just to be seen, there's something almost revolutionary about being quiet, about disappearing, and building in silence. Most people think silence is weakness, that if you're not posting about it, you're not doing it, that if you're not loud, you must be losing. But the greats, the real ones, understood something deeper. Stillness is not weakness. It's strength under control. It's power, on standby. It's the lion resting in the grass, knowing full well it could devour everything in its path, but choosing not to. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It's necessary, because until you master your internal world, you'll always be at the mercy of the external one. Every comment, every rejection, every fake smile, every dopamine hit from likes, views, and claps. They own you until you take your power back. So, what does it really mean to focus on yourself? It means you stop measuring your worth by how they react. You stop begging for closure, attention, or validation. You stop checking who's watching your story and start writing your own. It means you wake up early. You train in silence, you eat with discipline, you speak less, you listen more, you guard your energy like your life depends on it. Because it does. And what does it mean to stay silent? It means you don't need to announce every move. You don't need to clap for yourself in public, because you're too busy clapping for yourself in private. It means you let the work speak. You let the results echo in rooms you haven't even entered yet. Let me be blunt. If you keep pouring your energy into proving yourself to people who don't even know themselves, you'll never rise. But if you turn that energy inward, if you sit with your thoughts, get real with your flaws, forgive yourself for the dumb stuff, and start rebuilding, one piece at a time, you become dangerous, unstoppable. Not because you're louder, but because you're unshakable. Look, this video isn't about self-help. It's about self-honor. It's about understanding that your peace is more valuable than being understood, that your growth is worth more than being liked, that your silence is the soil where real power grows. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how it works, the Stoic wisdom behind staying silent, the real psychology behind focusing inward, and why those two practices change everything. We'll talk about the philosophy, the science, the strategy, the mindset, and most importantly, we'll talk about how you can start doing it today, not tomorrow, not next year, now. You don't have to scream anymore. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to be still. Show up, shut up, and let your life speak. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, everything starts to fall into place. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Power of Silence. Most people fear silence. It makes them uncomfortable, like something must be wrong if no one is speaking, if no one is reacting. But the truth, Silence is not the absence of power, it's the full presence of it. The Stoics knew this. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, didn't write thousands of pages. He practiced in stillness, in restraint, and Epictetus, once a slave, said something that still echoes today. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Let that sink in, because in our world, a world full of noise, opinions, hashtags, arguments, and endless streams of attention-seeking, the rarest thing you'll ever find is a person who knows how to be quiet. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote to himself every morning, not to impress the world, not to go viral, but to hold himself accountable. In silence, he said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." So what does that mean for you? It means stop trying to dominate every conversation. Stop trying to prove yourself to everyone who barely knows who they are. You want peace? Step back. Say less. Listen more. Silence is your shield, but it's also your sword. Modern psychology is only just catching up to what the Stoics taught centuries ago. Studies show that intentional silence, moments where we turn inward and cut the noise, boosts emotional intelligence, increases clarity, improves decision-making. In fact, brain scans show that silence activates the hippocampus, the region linked to memory, learning, and deep thinking. When you eliminate distraction, you create space, and in that space, your mind begins to reorganize, heal, refocus. Now think about this. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people say the least? You sit across from them, and they don't need to prove anything, because their presence already speaks. That's not by accident, that's strategy. Elon Musk once said, "Be so good they can't ignore you." Let success make the noise. You see, real power doesn't perform. It prepares. It doesn't broadcast. It builds. Why do monks spend years in silence? Why do Navy SEALs train in isolation, far from distraction? Because they understand this truth. Noise is the enemy of mastery. In silence, you learn, you sharpen, you become dangerous. You don't need to speak on everything. You don't need to react to every comment, every rumor, every insult, because the minute you do, you hand over your power, you reveal your insecurities, you show them what gets to you. But when you choose silence, you keep them guessing. They don't know if you're unbothered or planning your next move. Either way, you win. Silence teaches you the difference between impulse and intention. It gives you space to breathe before you speak. And in that space, you stop reacting and start responding with clarity. But listen closely now, because this is where most people get it wrong. Silence is not avoidance. It's not cowardice. It's not weakness. It's not hiding. It's alignment. You're not avoiding the world. You're aligning with yourself. You're letting go of the distractions so you can double down on the mission. Look around you. The loudest ones, they burn out first. They reveal their moves too early. They confuse motion with progress. They live for attention and die by its absence. But the silent ones, they're too busy working, too focused to explain, too disciplined to need applause. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in a room with no music, no phone, no distractions? Just you, your thoughts, and the truth. Because that moment, that quiet reckoning with yourself, that's where real power is born. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. Rumi, you begin to hear your real goals again. You hear your inner voice rise above the static. You stop performing. You start becoming. And let me tell you this from experience. When you finally step into that stillness, when you stop trying to explain your worth, when you stop chasing claps, and instead focus on doing the work, People will notice. They'll wonder what you're up to, why you're so quiet, why you're glowing differently, why you stopped showing up to gossip, drama, chaos. And you'll just smile, because you finally realized you're not missing out on anything. They are. Silence isn't an absence, it's a weapon. Use it wisely. Say less, listen more, move with purpose, and remember, you don't need to be loud to be heard. Chapter 2. The Art of Focusing on Yourself. You've silenced the noise. Now comes the harder part, focusing on yourself. And I don't mean self-care trends. I don't mean spa days, cheat meals, or posting your grind for validation. I mean something far deeper, far quieter. I mean becoming the main character in your life, without needing the audience. Most people spend their entire lives obsessing over people who don't even think about them. They scroll endlessly, comparing their behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. They twist themselves into versions of who they think they should be, just to be accepted by people they don't even respect. But the moment you turn that energy inward, everything changes. Let me say that again, because someone out there needs to hear it. Everything changes when you stop chasing their approval and start building your own. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the heart of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. There are two categories in life: things you can control, things you cannot. And every minute you spend trying to manipulate, impress, chase, or fix what's outside your control is a minute you lose from the one life you were meant to build. So let me ask you right now, where is your energy going? Are you using it to build your character, or are you wasting it trying to shape your image? Because focusing on yourself doesn't mean selfishness, it means accountability. It means asking the real questions. What are my daily habits teaching my future self? Am I moving in alignment or just reacting to triggers? What am I avoiding by focusing on others? And here's the brutal truth. Most people don't want to face themselves, so they stay distracted, hooked on validation, drowning in comparison. Why? Because if they slowed down, if they put the phone down, if they cut the noise and sat in stillness, they'd have to confront the reality that they've been performing, not living, projecting, not becoming. But this is where the transformation begins. Focus on yourself means facing yourself, your flaws, your habits, your addictions, your potential. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But discomfort is not the enemy. It's the invitation. This is why Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus all emphasized daily reflection. Every night, ask yourself, what did I do well today? What did I do poorly? Where can I improve? Not to punish yourself, but to align yourself, to take full ownership of your time, your energy, your life. And modern psychology, it backs this 100%. Did you know that mirror neurons, the part of your brain responsible for empathy and mimicry, are constantly being triggered when you scroll social media? That means every time you compare yourself to someone else, your brain begins to mirror them. You become the people you envy, but only the shallow version of them, and you forget who you are in the process. Comparison is a thief. It steals your peace, your purpose, your power, and you give it permission every time you ignore yourself to chase someone else's life. Now hear this. You don't need to become louder. You need to become clearer. And that clarity, it comes from cutting distractions. Here's your challenge. If you're brave enough to take it, for 30 days, cut out 90% of the noise. Stop broadcasting your goals. Replace scrolling with journaling. Start your day in silence. End it with reflection. And during this time, Start a daily wins journal. Every night write down 3 things you did well, 1 thing you learned, 1 promise you're making to yourself tomorrow. This isn't a productivity hack, it's a personal revolution. Because when you begin to track your own growth, you stop needing anyone else's applause. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, let's call him Daniel, was addicted to performance. Every gym session posted, every meal photographed, every win screamed from the rooftops. And yet, he felt empty, anxious, burned out. Until one day, he quit social media. Cold turkey. He disappeared for 6 months. No texts, no status updates, just silence and self-work. He trained harder, ate cleaner, read daily, journaled like his life depended on it. 6 months later, he didn't just return, he arrived, fitter, sharper, at peace, and the same people who ignored his posts before were now asking how he did it. He smiled and simply said, "I stopped trying to be seen, and I started becoming someone worth seeing." That's the art of focusing on yourself. It's not aesthetic, it's not public, it's not for likes, it's for your soul. You want to transform? Cut the noise, face your reflection, own your flaws, sharpen your discipline, track your progress, stay silent. And one day, without needing to say a word, you'll walk into a room and your presence will speak louder than any post ever could. This is not motivation, this is clarity. Focus on yourself, silence the world, build your peace. Chapter 3. Success loves stillness. Let me ask you a question. Do you really want success? Or do you just want to be seen trying? Because one is quiet, the other is loud, one happens in silence. The other needs an audience, one takes years, the other lives for moments. We live in a time where being visible is confused with being valuable, where presence online is mistaken for progress in real life, where people chase followers before chasing mastery. But the truth? If you're always visible, you're probably not working deep enough. Because deep work, real work, the kind of work that changes your life, doesn't beg for eyes. It requires absence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves crash over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." He didn't say be the wave, he said be the rock, unmoved, anchored, solid in stillness. But stillness in our culture is mistaken for stagnation. If you're not posting, they think you're doing nothing. If you're quiet, they think you're unsure. If you're unseen, they assume you've stopped growing. Let them assume, because you don't owe the world updates. You owe yourself results. There's a myth that success has to be noisy, that it comes with applause, interviews, accolades, cameras, that you have to be on every stage, in every room, at every moment. But ask yourself, where do the greats build? Not in the spotlight, not in the noise, but in the shadows, in the hours no one sees, in the days no one claps for. Let's talk about Kobe Bryant. Everyone saw the championships, the buzzer beaters, the Mamba mentality. But what they didn't see, the 4 a.m. workouts, the nights he refused to leave the gym until he made 400 shots, the stillness between games where he studied film in silence. Kobe didn't just train harder, he trained quieter. No distractions, no cameras, just the sound of the ball, the bounce, the breath, the rhythm. That's success, that's stillness. And this isn't just athletes, entrepreneurs, the real ones. They don't post every brainstorm. They don't live stream every setback. They're too busy building quietly, failing privately, iterating relentlessly, until one day, boom, the world says, "Where did this come from?" But it didn't come from nowhere. It came from stillness, from discipline, from years of being unseen. Success doesn't come from exposure. It comes from execution. and execution thrives in solitude. There's something sacred about grinding in silence. No one checking in, no one cheering you on. Just you, your plan, your standards, and the will to keep showing up. And when you do, when you keep going when no one's watching, that's when you become unstoppable. Because you're no longer fueled by attention, you're fueled by purpose. Stillness is your advantage. It means you're not distracted. You're not reactive. You're not diluted by noise. You're focused, intentional, dangerous. They'll wonder why you're not showing up to every party, why you stopped explaining your plans, why you're not documenting every little move like everyone else. Let them wonder. While they talk, you work. And when it's time, they'll ask how you did it. Success loves stillness because stillness requires discipline. To not overshare, to not react, to not prove, to sit down and get better in silence every single day. That's what separates the ones who want it from the ones who say they want it. You want to shock the world? Disappear. Get to work. Keep receipts. Speak only when it's done. And when they ask where you've been, just smile and say, I've been becoming. Remember, true success isn't about how many people are watching you build. It's about how well you build when no one is watching. Chapter 4. Inner stillness. In a loud world. The world doesn't slow down. It doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. It just keeps shouting. More notifications. More deadlines. More opinions. More noise. And before you know it, you're not living. You're reacting. Most people go years without ever sitting in real silence. Not the silence of a quiet room, but the silence of a still mind. They fill every second, scrolling, checking, watching, talking, because deep down they're terrified of being alone with their own thoughts. But here's the truth that most never realize. You can't truly hear yourself until you stop listening to everything else. We were never meant to live in this much noise. The human brain wasn't designed to absorb the anxiety of 1,000 strangers, to witness 50 highlight reels before breakfast, to be pulled in 10 directions before we've even left bed. No wonder we feel scattered. No wonder peace feels like a myth. But it's not a myth. It's just been drowned out. Stillness isn't gone. It's just been buried under layers of stimulation. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the presence of something deeper, something calmer, something solid. Science proves it. Silence literally lowers cortisol, your body's main stress hormone. It calms the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear and reactivity. It heals. Even 2 minutes of true silence can lower blood pressure, improve sleep, and boost focus. That's not hype, that's biology. But the effects go beyond the physical. Stillness is where healing begins. Emotional healing, mental healing, spiritual healing. Because when you sit quietly, the pain you've buried rises, the shame you've carried surfaces, the regrets, the confusion, the trauma, you finally face them. And that's uncomfortable, but it's also necessary. You cannot outrun the work, you can only postpone it. And the longer you postpone, the heavier it gets. That's why monks sit in silence, why warriors meditate before battle, why the most self-aware people you'll ever meet are the ones who've dared to be still. Because stillness forces you to confront what distraction lets you ignore. Practice stillness. Not for aesthetic, but for survival. Try this. Wake up at 5 a.m. before the world speaks. Take a cold shower, not for the challenge, but to discipline your mind. Sit down for 10 minutes. No music, no scrolling, just breathing. Feel your thoughts. Let them scream. Don't run, just be. The first time you do this, your mind will rebel. You'll feel anxious. You'll want to check your phone. You'll remember unfinished tasks. Good. That's the exact moment most people quit. But it's also the moment something begins to shift. Stillness is hard because it's honest. It reveals what the noise hides, and maybe that's why we avoid it. But Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist, philosopher, survivor of Auschwitz, wrote one of the most powerful truths ever spoken. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, that sacred pause, is stillness. It's the space where you decide, do I react with fear or respond with wisdom? Do I speak from ego or stay silent with strength? Do I cling to pain or begin to let it go? Without stillness, you'll never access that space. You'll live in reaction, always triggered, always performing, always surviving, but never choosing. But with stillness, you reclaim your power. Let me speak to you directly right now. You don't need permission to be still. You don't owe anyone your performance. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't have to reply to everything. You don't need to stay in the loop. You don't need to be seen every day. Stillness is not laziness. It's not giving up. It's not falling behind. It's a sacred pause to remember who you are. And from that stillness, you begin to move differently, speak differently, live differently. Not because you're trying to appear wise, but because you are wise. That's what happens when you cultivate inner stillness. You stop explaining your silence, and you start becoming the silence, unshakable, grounded, whole. Stillness won't solve everything, but it will reveal everything. And when you finally see clearly, that's when the real work begins. So choose stillness, not because it's easy, but because it's honest, because it's healing, because the world is too loud and you are too precious to be lost in its chaos. Chapter 5. Building in the dark. Here's a hard truth. The work that actually changes your life won't be seen, at least not at first. We live in an age that rewards visibility. People don't ask, "What are you building?" They ask, "Why haven't I seen it yet?" But real success doesn't come from being seen early. It comes from being ready when you finally are. Building in the dark means this. You make the plan. You build the structure. You break it. You rebuild it. You refine it. All without telling the world. Because silence isn't a sign you've disappeared. It's a sign you're working on something worth waiting for. The most important work, the work that defines you, happens off camera. No likes, no applause, no audience, just intention, just effort, just raw, unfiltered pursuit. Because if the foundation is weak, it doesn't matter how shiny the surface is. And here's the danger: premature exposure. The temptation to show the world what you're doing before it's ready, to announce too early, to seek praise before the work is done. But exposure before maturity kills momentum, kills direction, kills the project. Because once you invite too many opinions, too many eyes, you stop building from vision and start building for validation. There's a power in silence, there's strategy in vanishing. Go ghost. Come back with receipts, let them wonder where you went, let them assume you're done, let them believe you fell off. Then return with proof, not with promises, not with concepts, with results. That's not mystery, that's maturity. You don't need to show them what you're building every day, because when it's finished, it will speak for itself. Document in silence, execute in silence, appear when it's time. Let me give you a few examples. Kendrick Lamar disappears between albums. No social media antics, no oversharing, just years of silence, then a masterpiece. Steve Jobs vanishes after leaving Apple. Everyone counted him out. He reappears with Pixar, then reappears again with the iPod, then the iPhone, all built in the dark. Cristiano Ronaldo. Spends the off-season in complete silence, no distractions. Then steps onto the pitch and shuts down the critics again. The world doesn't see the mornings he trains while others sleep. But it feels the results. The greats vanish, not to hide, but to build without noise. And you're no different. You don't need more validation. You need more quiet execution. So here's a challenge. If you're serious, if something inside you is done chasing claps and ready to chase excellence, take the 30-day no announcement challenge. For the next 30 days, make no announcements, post nothing about your goals, tell no one your plans, just build, track your progress quietly, show no one your drafts, speak only when it's finished, let your discipline surprise them, let your transformation be the punchline, let your absence become your advantage. Because when you build in the dark, you're not just avoiding distraction, you're protecting momentum. And by the end of those 30 days, you won't need to announce anything, because you'll have something undeniable. Look, anyone can perform. Anyone can tweet their ambition. Anyone can pose next to effort and call it hustle. But the ones who win, they vanish. They suffer in silence. They grind when it's boring. And they return with fire in their eyes and results in their hands. So don't just disappear. Disappear with purpose. Build without applause. Master your craft like the world is not watching, because it isn't, not yet. But when it is, make sure you've got something real to show for it. Remember, your glow-up doesn't need an announcement. Your comeback doesn't need a trailer. Your work will speak. Just make sure it has something worth saying. Chapter 6. What you say when you say nothing. There's a kind of power that doesn't raise its voice, a kind of confidence that doesn't explain itself, a kind of presence that speaks before you do. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. You see, we're conditioned to fill space, to justify, to over-explain, to respond, to react. But the truly powerful don't flinch when things go silent. They don't scramble to be heard. They don't race to be understood. They understand something deeper. Energy is louder than words. You ever walk into a room and feel someone's presence before they even spoke? That's not charisma. That's alignment. That's the power of a still mind, anchored in self-worth. They don't need to prove anything because they already know who they are. Silent confidence is rare because most people are so addicted to noise. They think silence is awkward. They think silence is weak. But silence is measured control. It's choosing your words rather than spilling them for approval. Epictetus once said, "Only speak if it improves upon the silence." That's not about being passive, it's about being precise. It means, don't speak to be heard, speak to be felt. Silence is unnerving to manipulators, to narcissists, to energy thieves, to anyone who needs a reaction to feel in control. Because when you don't react, they lose their script. When you don't defend yourself, they can't escalate. When you stay silent, they're forced to hear their own voice echo into awkwardness. Power move. Let the insecure one try to provoke you. Let the manipulator try to bait you. Let the attention seeker try to hijack the moment. You don't flinch. You don't match their chaos. You stay rooted. And in that stillness, they lose momentum. Here's what most people don't understand. Silence can't be misquoted. Silence can't be twisted. Silence can't be used against you. And silence, strategically placed, makes people lean in. It draws attention, not with noise, but with depth. Because silence in a conversation is a mirror. It reflects the other person's energy back at them. If they're insecure, it'll rattle them. If they're aggressive, it'll expose them. If they're fake, it'll unsettle them. So What are you saying? When you say nothing, you're saying, I'm not here to perform for your approval. I don't owe you access to my peace. You're not worth the emotional labor of a reaction. I trust myself more than I fear your misunderstanding. You don't always need a comeback. You don't always need a clever reply. Sometimes the most powerful move is the one where you say nothing and walk away with everything. Because the one who can hold silence owns the moment. Let's go deeper. When you're emotionally reactive, you give away your control. You hand the wheel to the other person. They say something, and you respond instantly. But when you're grounded in silent confidence, you observe first. You ask yourself, is this worth my time? Is this a projection or truth? Is this my ego responding or my wisdom? You pause, and that pause, that moment of stillness, is where you win. Speak only if it improves upon the silence. Otherwise, let the silence speak for you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them create stories about your silence. Let them feel uncomfortable when you don't explain yourself. That's not your responsibility. Because you know this now. Your energy speaks before your mouth ever opens. And when you master your silence, when you stop being addicted to being understood, you become dangerous because nothing can be taken from you. Not your peace, not your confidence, not your power. So here's your reminder. You don't always need to respond. You don't always need to correct them. You don't always need to be louder. Sometimes the most powerful message is no message at all. Your stillness is the standard. Your silence is the statement. And your calm is your crown. Say less, be more. Chapter 7. Walking away powerfully. There's a moment in every journey where you stop fighting and start choosing, where you stop chasing peace in broken places, and finally walk away, not with bitterness, not with ego, but with power. Because sometimes the most powerful move is no reaction, just distance. They think silence is weakness. They think detachment means you've given up. But you haven't. You've simply realized your peace costs too much to rent it out to chaos. Letting go is not passive. It's not defeat. It's not running away. It's understanding what no longer serves you and having the strength to say, this is no longer my path. Too many people stay in places they've outgrown because they're scared of being seen as selfish. But hear this. Staying where your soul shrinks to protect someone else's comfort is not loyalty. It's self-abandonment. The Stoics knew this. They practiced emotional detachment, not as coldness, but as clarity. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. In other words, if it gets to you, it's not about them. It's about what's unhealed in you. So instead of exploding, they observed, they paused, and they walked without flinching. Like the samurai who understood, power isn't proven in reaction. It's proven in restraint. The modern world tells you to clap back, respond with fire, make them regret it. But real power is this. You don't respond. You don't chase closure. You don't seek to be understood. You just move quietly, strongly, fully. You want peace? Then protect it like a fortress. Not everyone gets access, especially not the ones who feed off your energy and give nothing in return. We confuse connection with obligation, but you don't owe anyone continued access to you just because you shared a history. If their presence drains you more than it lifts you, walk away. If the conversation always ends in manipulation, walk away. If your growth is a threat to their comfort, walk away. This isn't cruelty. This is alignment. It takes maturity to end something without drama, to simply say, "This no longer fits who I'm becoming," and then leave. The truth? You don't rise by winning arguments. You rise by removing yourself from the environment where arguments are the norm. You don't heal by proving your worth to people who refuse to see it. You heal by deciding your worth doesn't need their confirmation. So let's redefine strength. Strength is letting them talk and choosing not to respond. Loving them from afar, because up close it only hurts. Closing the chapter, not because you hate the story, but because you've outgrown the role. Walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you learned. It means you've evolved. It means your soul is no longer willing to sit in rooms where your voice has to beg to be heard. You don't fight for peace. You protect it with silence, with boundaries, with distance. You'll know you've grown when silence feels like safety, and chaos starts to bore you. You'll know you've leveled up when your nervous system no longer responds to things that used to keep you up at night. So let them wonder why you stopped responding. Let them spin stories about your silence. Let them feel the void your absence leaves behind. You don't need to defend the move, because you are the move. You no longer fight to stay. You no longer beg to be seen. You no longer explain peace to people committed to conflict. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need them to see your side. You just need the strength to walk away fully, finally, quietly. Because not everything deserves a response. Not every door deserves to stay open. Not every person deserves to walk with you into the next chapter. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you'll ever do is leave quietly and never return. Chapter 8. The world changes when you do. There comes a moment when everything clicks. Not because the world got easier, not because the critics got quiet, not because the chaos stopped, but because you did the inner work. You stopped reacting, you stopped chasing, you stopped proving, and in that stillness, you remembered who you were. The world doesn't change first. You do. You started waking up earlier, keeping promises to yourself, showing up when no one clapped, building even when no one asked. And slowly, quietly, things began to shift. Your energy changed, your circle changed, your mindset hardened, your emotions matured, and without saying a word, the world took notice. People started asking, "You seem different. What have you been doing? How did you pull that off?" They don't realize it wasn't some overnight trick. It was months of silence, years of self-discipline, thousands of moments where you could have quit, but didn't. You stayed quiet. You stayed focused. You stayed grounded. You didn't need to broadcast the work, because the results became the message. Confidence grew. Opportunities came. The right people started watching. The wrong ones faded out. Life didn't just happen anymore. It aligned, because your habits were now louder than your words. The world bends, not to your demands, but to your energy. So when you move with clarity, the world moves with you. When you walk away from what drains you, the right paths appear. When you protect your peace, You stop inviting storms. Now you don't explain your vision. You don't argue with doubters. You don't beg to be understood. You stay silent. You build relentlessly. You move with intention. And you speak only with results. That's how you win. That's how you rise. That's how you lead. Because the world doesn't follow the loudest. It follows the most anchored. So let this be your next move. Disappear. Focus. Stop proving. Stop announcing. Stop performing. Build in the dark. Sharpen in the quiet. Let them sleep on you. And then watch what happens. They'll wonder how. They'll wonder when. They'll wonder why. Let them. Just smile and keep building. Because the world changes when you do. If this message hit something real inside you, then this wasn't just a video. It was a mirror, a reminder of who you were meant to be. So take a second. Like this video to lock it in. Subscribe so you don't forget the silence again. And drop a comment below with the word still. No explanation, no context, just that one word, still, to show the world you're done talking and ready to build.